tasty fruit comes from healthy trees. Trees, like people, if left unchecked, tend to become crazy, unmanageable, and hard to deal with. We don't want that with our fruit trees. We want fruit trees to be a blessing, to produce well, to be easy to manage, easy to harvest, and even to look nice, as a bonus. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Hi there, this is Jordy from Northern Homesteading, helping you to be successfully self-sufficient. So pear trees have a particular shape that they tend to take as they grow. Every tree does. Now, apple trees, they tend to grow bushier out towards the middle and top and be a little thinner at the bottom. Pear trees are kind of the opposite. They're more a little Christmas tree-like in their shape. They tend to grow wider at the bottom and skinnier at the top. That's this shape here, kind of pear-shaped or teardrop-shaped. And if you look close up at the top left corner, that's where you see the partridge. You know, right there? I'm not a good illustrator, but anyway, this is the approximate crude shape that pear trees try to take. However, they get there in kind of a wild and unruly way. Now over here, this is the pear tree that's down the road. I'm going to go prune that at the end of this video and you guys can watch me. This is the main growth pattern of that pear tree. Now it too has this overall real wide and then skinny shape to it. Kind of like that. But the main stem growth to it is twisted and twined, and the tree is so overgrown in the middle you don't get enough airflow to keep it dry. There's no sunlight getting in the middle. There's lots of damaged fruit and bug damage because of it. So I've got to show you how to do some pruning, and then I'm going to go out and prune this tree down the road, and I'll show you the process on a quick time through. The main points of pruning is to make the tree more manageable to harvest. You want to be able to get in and harvest your fruit. You have to have access to it. You want to make sure that you're not going to have limbs that are going to have too much fruit on them so that they split and break. You want to take off any weak limbs, and you don't want too many limbs in one spot so that there's not enough sunlight getting to the limbs left. So back to my good diagram here. What you want to see in a well-pruned pear tree is something about like this. And then it comes up, and you might have one like that, and then maybe one here. The branches on the pear tree start by growing out. And then they go up, and then maybe one from here, and it and then shoots up. Maybe another one there and there. See, that's about what you're looking for in this tree. What you don't want in this one here, this tree is basically the one down the road. It literally has 3 main stems growing out. I've got to tackle that. It's horrid. I'm going to start by chopping off these 2. I'm going to leave this main one. And then this main stem still has a main split here. It's not decided whether this is the main or this is the main portion of the tree. I'm going to pick one. I'm probably going to chop that off and go with just this main here. So then it's going to be something like that. So I'm going to take those right off. Now with these main portions of the tree here, I want to cut them off pretty darn close down to the main trunk. I don't want much excess at all there. If I leave too much of a stump, if I leave much of a stump where I cut these off, then it'll rot away, and you'll end up getting that rot to go into the core of the tree and damaging the tree, and later on that will kill the whole tree. So you want these, you want them cut almost but not quite flush with the rest of the tree. For these bigger branches that you're trimming off, they usually have a spot down, use my green marker, they usually have a spot down at the bottom where there's like a extra bulge of growth where they start, down at the bottom. You get to the end of that extra bulge of growth and you chop it right off past there. That's perfect. So now I've got this main piece here. Well, there's also all kinds of wild branches and big suckers all over the place in this thing. So that's pretty much what the tree looks like. It's a horrible conglomeration. It's actually much worse than that. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's never been pruned, and it's completely wild. There's literally 3 trunks at the bottom. The thing is horrid. So starting by taking those off, we've cleared it up a lot already. The next thing I want to do is look for any of the main suckers that are getting in the way. A sucker is a new growth branch that it's a really fast growth branch, and they shoot straight up, and they grow up to 4 or 5, sometimes even 6 feet in one season. They grow real fast, and they tend to get in the way. So I want to take those off. This one here goes straight up, and when it has leaves on it, it'll end up blocking off the sunlight to other branches. I don't want one branch that's going to block much light off to any other branches, because that creates unhealthy branches. They need sunlight to grow and to get enough photosynthesis. Another point here, right here I have this branch coming out and it splits. The fork right here is coming back up and curling in. I don't want anything growing in towards the center of the tree. Take that off. This one too. Take that off. Let's see here. This is a crazy sucker up here. That comes off. So now we're starting to get something a little more manageable. The tree here has a main fork at the top. That's okay. I need to keep the main growth stem intact. Having one split at the top is okay. What I don't want is a split down here, because then it gets way too unruly. But right here, see, I've got this branch. It comes out and it's growing. It's up taller than the rest of the tree. If I keep letting that go, this branch wants to compete for and become the main branch of the tree. And it can end up becoming, put a little green next to it, it can end up really becoming a main portion of the tree. If it does become a main portion of the tree, markers are quitting on me. If you do get a main portion of that tree that starts going off like that, you get a new branch that starts to become a primary part of the tree trunk. They tend to be bad angles. With pear trees, like apple trees, the strength in the branches, the strongest branches are the ones that come out at more like a 45 to a 90-degree angle for starting right out of that tree trunk. When you get more splitting up and coming right out, going straight up, those branches have really weak forks. It's a really weak joint in the tree, and they tend to snap when they're full of fruit and they get in the wind. So something like this branch that starts going straight up here, take it off. The same thing with this one here. I just had to draw it again. It comes out and it's going straight up, basically. I'm going to take that right off. I don't want a branch that comes out straight up. So take that right off. I'll fix you. There. These wipe off easy. Now, let's say I've got, this comes out. This would probably have another one going in like that. On this shape, I don't want that. You don't want anything growing in towards the tree. This branch here starts going up too straight. So I would take about half of it off just because it's growing up too straight. You don't want anything coming out and then going straight up again. You want a slight curve up is okay, but when you get that straight up, that gets too weak of a crotch in the tree and they'll snap. So now what we're left with is a tree that's going to be much healthier. We're taking away branches that are blocking the sunlight from other branches too much. If one branch blocks most of the light from another, take it off. We want the trunk not to have anything growing back in towards it, towards the middle of the tree, because that blocks out the sunlight. I want sunlight to be able to hit the main trunk of the tree a little bit to keep it dry so we don't have too much moss problems, which just stays more wet, and then you get fungus issues in the tree. So overall now, my new tree has a shorter shape to it. which is okay. It's going to grow up and grow out. Honestly, I'm probably going to whack these off too. They're getting a little bit straight up. There you go. So that's really what we're looking for. Between the branches, I want between 8 and 16 inches of extra space between each branch on the trunk. If these are only 6 inches apart, I'm going to take off a branch. You need 8 to 16 inches, sometimes even a little further is okay, closer to 18 to 20 inches between branches so you have enough space, room for air circulation, room to get in there and pick the fruit later too. You need the space. It's okay to do severe cutting back on the trees. When it comes to trimming these smaller limbs, I mentioned with the bigger branches when you're trimming them off, don't leave big stumps. With the smaller limbs, you want to leave just a little bitty bump. You want to leave about a 1/4 inch when you trim off these smaller limbs, or if you're trimming off a split off of a smaller limb. Leave about a 1/4 inch of that so that it'll form a nice solid scar. If you cut it too close, that can end up causing a little bit of rot to go into the tree. When you cut a limb off, it will rot down a little bit before it forms a proper type of a scar. You don't want that. If you cut it flush, it's going to rot down into the tree, and then the whole tree is susceptible to tree rot. If you leave a 1/4 inch little bump after you cut these smaller limbs, they'll scar over nice and well and stay healthy. The other thing is when you're trimming these side branches, these non-primary branches, you want to trim them just above a bud. Just above a bud that's pointing outward. All these little branches, they have buds on them. Every bud, if you can see these, every bud will eventually become another branch. If I trim this off, and the next bud is on the inside, towards the inside of the tree, it's going to grow up towards the inside of the tree. I don't want these things to grow in, I want them to want to grow out more like that. So I'm going to trim it so that the last bud on this limb is on the outer, pointing out, so it's going to grow out, and it'll grow outward as the tree grows. I'll still have space to get into towards the trunk in the middle of the tree, work around the tree and pick the fruit. That's what you need to know for the basics of how to prune your pear tree. Use a sharp saw or a sharp hatchet, a sharp machete, and get to work. Now I'm going to show you a speed reel of me going out and pruning this crazy overgrown wild pear tree.